I heard they talked about Aaron Rodgers on the AM version of NFL. We're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers on the PM version of the Locked On NFL show right now.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is absolutely your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I mean, the NFL free agency is over. It's time to get ready for the draft, and we are still talking about a certain person, and that's what we're going to get to today. Because wherever you get your podcast, you need to tap in and make sure you don't miss an episode. I don't care if you watch them or listen to them. We will be there. Make sure you tap in. All right, and today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I got my brother Julian Council here. We ain't been together for a minute because I've been out and Julian's been out, but we're back together today. We're going to give you an NFC South outlook. Well, we'll talk about one team in particular, and that is Julian Council's Carolina Panthers, because I think they're quietly doing what has to be done, just keeping their head down, making good, sound football decisions, developing their quarterback. We'll see how far they've actually gone doing that. In the middle of the show, the hope for Justin Fields to get better. Well, we all hope that. He's just got to do it with the Jets, and that may be his undoing. But we're going to start at the top with Aaron Rodgers still being himself. Julian, do you believe we are actually having an Aaron Rodgers, what is he going to do conversation?
Why is he still playing football? I don't understand. Like, what are you getting out of it at this point in time? Your body has been broken. Your soul has been tortured by being in New York the last 2 years. I just don't really understand why he wants to continue to play, and even less so, I don't understand why are teams waiting for Aaron Rodgers at this point. It's befuddling to me. That's all I can say.
It is absolutely befuddling to me, and it really is befuddling because one of those teams is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who usually have a pretty decent way of doing things, but now they put themselves in a position, and even Chris Carter, who covers the Steelers, does not think that it's all about 2025, and that's where I feel like if it's not all about 2025, well, even if it was about 2025, I would be against him. But if it's not all about 2025, how about leaving him where he is? But I'm going to let Chris explain the events that happened last week, and it'll be exactly what we're talking about with him.
Jerry Dulac, my colleague at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, broke the news to the world that Aaron Rodgers was actually at the Steelers facility last Friday, and it seemed to many at first that this could have been the final straw with him signing the deal with the Steelers, ending the saga, and ending the question of where he's going to be in free agency. But then, shortly after that gets out, we saw a lot of reports come in that that wouldn't be the case, and that he, in fact, this was more of a precursory visit with the team. Rodgers came, met with the Steelers brass for about 6 hours, then left with no deal. So you're probably sitting here wondering, well, wait, did that mean anything? What was the point of all this? Well, there could be many takeaways, but I'll give you mine. I think the biggest thing that I see here is that the Steelers, despite how people say, oh, they're desperate, they really want Aaron Rodgers. If they were desperate to sign Aaron Rodgers and he's flirting supposedly with the Giants and the Vikings might still be in play, he would have left Pittsburgh with a deal. They would not have let him walk out the door unless they were like, unless they were sitting there saying like, hey, Aaron, we absolutely need you. But I don't think that's what happened there. Because Rodgers would have been signed to a contract, they would have ended this whole thing, and we would now know that Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers quarterback, and he still might be. I'm not saying that he's not going to be. They definitely want him, which is why they're entertaining all this, and they have a price that they've set out for him.
You see my face?
Yeah.
We're doing it again, man. And Chris does a great job, and he's here with us every Thursday, and he's doing what he has to do. He's reporting the facts as he knows them. But the thing is when it comes to Rodgers, you never know what the facts are, and it always leaves you. And Chris he's dead on it, man. He has his finger on the pulse of the team. And guess what? Even he has to sit here and go, what does it mean? I don't know. It could mean this. It could mean that. And that's what Aaron Rodgers is. That is the problem. That is the point. He is the most unquarterback-like quarterback I have ever seen, especially an old guy who knows better.
Yeah, it's odd that at this stage of his career, considering how he's played, that he's taking this much time and that he's letting the mark. I mean, we've already seen Jameis Winston go to New York. Now, I don't think that precludes the Giants from going out there and signing Aaron Rodgers or drafting a quarterback. But at this point in time, that may be one less option in his mind. For Pittsburgh's perspective, man, I know people want to sit here and say, oh, well, they should have just kept Justin Fields instead of messing around and gave him the deal. But okay, well, Tomlin benched them for a reason. And they came out and they played better with Russell. The offense had another element of Russell. And he went out and said, Mike did. That's why I'm highly compensated. And he's highly compensated because this team finds a way to get to the playoffs. They find a way to never have a losing season under him. And regardless of who their quarterback is this upcoming season, that's probably going to be the case. I don't look at Russell Wilson. I don't look at Aaron Rodgers. I don't look at Justin Fields as guys that are going to be long-term options to get Pittsburgh to where they belong. And that's competing for AFC championships. That's competing for Super Bowl titles. And for their focus really should be, I mean, hell, man, this quarterback draft is not good. And the last time they drafted the quarterback was in another quarterback draft that was terrible. And they took a guy, Kenny Pickett, who they sat there, watched him for 5 years in the same building. Kenny Pickett, I don't want to say the wrong words. He was not good at Pitt until the very end. Right. And I have if you watch college football, Kenny Pickett was going to be as bad as he was in the NFL. One magical season does not erase how bad he was at the University of Pittsburgh. So I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do at quarterback. It's not, the answer's not out there this offseason. So I guess bring in Aaron Rodgers, but then, Mike Tomlin, you want to deal with him and George Pickens on the same roster and that headache? God bless.
I would have signed Jameis Winston first. And the reason why is because with Arthur Smith combined with Mike Tomlin and combined with Pittsburgh still living out the tradition of the 70s, and that's the closest you'll ever get me to criticizing a team that continues to make the playoff year after year after year. But if you're just going to run the ball for the most part and use play action and throw it to your tight ends and get the ball to George Pickens deep, Jameis Winston probably was a better answer for you, because at the very least, I heard Cam Hayward say this about Jameis Winston. He's the best teammate I've ever had. And at the very least, if you're going to, like Sean Payton said about when he left Tampa, well, if he's throwing 30 interceptions, then why are you letting him throw the ball 35 times a game? Pittsburgh was by default, because of who they are and because who the Arthur Smith is, they were probably going to sit there and pound the rock and play defense and use a little play action and throw the ball deep, which Jameis does fine. You get in trouble when you fall in love with those throws that Jameis makes because he was the number 1 overall pick and he's a 5-star recruit in high school. You fall in love with it and go, okay, maybe he's past that. And then he'll throw 3 bad plays in a row and you'll lose the game. And you realize you cannot. He's just too much of a risk taker when it comes to the quarterback position. But I think they should have signed Jameis Winston instead of fooling around with this. And this is going to, if he signs with Pittsburgh, I think this might be the thing that sends him over the top with Tomlin and people. The people that want him out will probably win the battle, and he'll be out because he believed in Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's what it is.
But is this a Mike Tomlin decision, or is this an Omar Khan decision? Is this the Rooney decision? Like, who's making the final decision here on who the quarterback's going to be? Because Khan, since he's taken over for Kevin Colbert, it's not like the Steelers, while they're not losing, I don't know how much credit you can give the general manager for the roster construction of this team at this point in time, especially on the offensive side of the ball at the most important position, and even looking at receiver as well. So I don't think there's going to be an answer for Pittsburgh that's going to get them to being better than Cincinnati or being better than Baltimore this upcoming season. And I feel the same way with any team that has quarterback questions at this point in time, they're screwed this upcoming season. Because
no doubt,
any of the guys coming out in the draft, like, you want to talk yourself into Jackson Dart, go ahead and fire everybody in the building, and hell, owner, sell the team, because that's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to work. When we're sitting here talking about Drew Aller before he decided to go back after that hellacious Orange Bowl. It's like, what are we watching?
Yeah, man. I don't know. Sometimes I sit here and I trip out on the way people judge these quarterbacks too. It's almost really, it's like we never learn. That's the problem. We never learn.
Don't want to. Clearly.
And guess what? And guess who else never learns? Jets fans. No. We're going to figure out if this is the best thing for Justin Fields, who I'm kind of rooting for because I think he's a nice kid, but he ain't necessarily in the place where you go for organizational structure. We'll discuss that and more here in a second on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go, I did that last week. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building wealth. I'll tell you what, man, this all-in-one convenience is really, really important. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. And today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Picking my favorites is a hard thing to do, man, but I got my eye on a few underdogs this year. They mostly come out of the Southeastern Conference because it seems like the whole tournament is the SEC. And FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. That's FanDuel. All right, Jay, let's jump back into the NFL. I'm just going to do this because I know what's going to happen, man. I'm going to let you cook. I'm going to go to this video first with John Lee talking about Justin Fields to the Jets. What's the possibilities? How does it feel? What are they looking for? What are they hoping to happen? Check this out.
Let's start at the quarterback position. I think that's a pretty clear yellow flag right now for the Jets, with Justin Fields set to be the team's starting quarterback in 2025. And we've discussed Fields a lot the last couple of weeks, and we're going to discuss Fields a lot between now and opening day because he is perhaps the most critical player on the team, which is no surprise because he plays the most important position on the field, the quarterback position. And Fields' career to date, it's pretty basic. He was a first-round pick. The Bears traded up to get him in 2021. And while there were some good moments, while there were some high points, they were not consistent enough. They did not come frequently enough. And Fields was sent to Pittsburgh last year for a late round pick where, because of an injury to Russell Wilson, he started the first handful of games, but was not effective enough for Mike Tomlin to stick with them. The Steelers eventually put in Russell Wilson, and Wilson started the rest of the season. Fields is, I think that what the Jets hope will be the next quarterback reclamation project in the NFL. And we've seen a lot of these in recent years. We've seen a lot of former Jets quarterbacks who were high picks who did not fare well with their first team, namely Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, go to another team and find success. And
you notice he just said the real part at the end. They went somewhere else and found success. They didn't come back and find success with the New York Jets. So, Julian, before I let you cook on this subject, I'm old enough to remember when the New England Patriots had that little man hiking the football on their helmet, and I thought they were always going to be terrible. And they turned it around. I'm old enough to remember after Doug Williams, those popsicle-colored uniforms with Tampa Bay, and I thought they would always be bad. And nope, they weren't. They got it together, and they won 2 Super Bowls. So I'll never say never. But can we say that with the Jets?
Well, they do have a Super Bowl, Super Bowl II. Yeah, Joe Namath.
It was 1969, homie.
Yeah,
That's the year I was born, and I'm 55 with gray beard. So
they did win that one, beat Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts. So it is possible. We do know that. But nowadays, man, the Jets killed Carl. That's what I'll say. Shout out to Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I like Justin Fields. I liked him coming out of college. I was hoping that he'd go to a situation where he have success. Chicago clearly was not that, and that's a place also where quarterbacks go to die, and we'll see what they're able to do. Caleb Williams, I like what they've done this offseason. But as far as with New York, it's great he has Garrett Wilson, and maybe the relationship they have dating back to their time at the Ohio State University will help him in terms of that. But I feel like the infrastructure is far worse than when he left in Pittsburgh, and I can understand him not liking how those Steelers dealt with things last year and benching him when the team was winning. I don't think it was they were winning because of Justin Fields. The team was winning, but you could see that you can win games with Justin in the right circumstance. And I do not believe this will be the right circumstance for Justin or for the Jets to win games at a high level. And that just comes all the way down to ownership and goes back to just the systemic issues that they have there, dating back to, after, I guess, Mark Sanchez was gone, because it has not worked, whether it's been Sam Darnold, whether it's been Geno Smith, whether it's been Zach Wilson. They have not had the infrastructure for a young quarterback to go in there and to have success, which is why the Jets are continuously always trying to find someone. Maybe they're the problem and it's not the player. Now, in their defense, Sam Darnold, I don't care what he did last year. He's not good. And Zach Wilson, again, kind of like, the dude was in a quarterback competition that spring at BYU, y'all. And then the next year, you're talking about he's a number 2 pick because he played in a pandemic season where they didn't play any Power 5 competition. And the only game they played against a good team was against Coastal Carolina, where Grayson McCall, who just finished his 7th year of college football, he was a quarterback and outplayed him. But yeah, that's the guy to take 2nd overall. Again, do you watch college at all? And it's just like, it's crazy to me. Like, these guys obviously aren't going to be good, but it's like, hell, forget it. He's tall. He's got the right kind of pigment. He's our guy.
Look, man, I'm hoping for the best with Aaron Glenn, because I do think he's a leader of men, right? But you still need organizational structure and infrastructure that is conducive to a winning organization. And I think as long as Woody Johnson owns that team, they won't have that. Switching gears to a team that made the playoffs 2 years in a row, but if you listen to people, you'd think that they didn't, and that's the Houston Texans. But now we'll temper that saying that they're really in the division that I once called the Mountain West of the NFL. That's the AFC South. So
that's disrespectful to the Mountain West.
Yeah, that is a little bit disrespectful, that man. So there's some thought that maybe the Texans can kind of turn the corner a little bit, but you almost wonder what they're really, really doing. Listen to the guys from Peacock and Williams to talk about the Texans, and you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about.
So the Houston Texans, they've made a lot of moves, haven't gotten a lot better to my eyes here. Talk to me about the Texans and what you think is going on there with them and what their plan is, because right now you're looking at the offensive line, and they added Cam Robinson on a 1-year contract, right?
$12 million.
Traded away Laramie Tunsil. I'm not seeing the vision.
Right. They cut Mason. They traded away Green, the former first-round pick guard. So I think a couple things. I commend them because I think it's a badass defense, to be honest with you. And along those lines, I thought we'd do like a whole Texan segment. They extended Danielle Hunter today added another $35.6 million on 1 more year. That's the going rate, I guess, for these top tier pass rushers. And I wouldn't put him in tier 1, but right behind. I think he's a really good player. And I was looking at it too. Like, he's going to go way past 100 sacks. He came in the league so young. I never think of him as like a Hall of Famer, but that's kind of the magic number. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
He's been so good, and he might end up in that Hall of Very Good area for his career. He's been a phenomenal player, and I love this deal because it gets him big money toward the top of the market, but it's not a long-term contract. He's got 1 more year left on his deal.
Listen, I'm going to give them a little bit of a break here because Houston has 2 really good corners. top 3 corner, Derek Stingley just got paid. They have 2 really good edge rushers. They mentioned Daniil Hunter, but Will Anderson has definitely lived up to whatever they gave up to trade up for him. And then on offense, them getting the best out of Nico Collins and turning him into a top 7, top 8 receiver is good. And they hit right. You can say what you want to say. Joe Mixon can play. He can still play. He's a very good player. I still have a hard time trying to figure out what the hell it is that's wrong with them and what are they doing. I just come back to the conclusion that they got a rookie quarterback who played way better than people thought he was going to play, and then they reached for everything because they thought they were closer than they really were, and infrastructurally, their offensive line stunk.
Yeah, and the changes they made to the offensive line, I don't know if that's made them better. Like, I don't know if they've gotten better because they've gotten rid of Larry Tunsil, and I know it was Kendrick Green, the A&M guy who they got rid of, and then the guys they brought in honestly played worse than the guys that they got rid of last year when you look at some of the numbers from Pro Football Focus. So I can understand, though, just wanting to make a change, because doing the same thing again probably doesn't make a lot of sense in this circumstance. And like, they do have time to tinker, which is kind of crazy to say in the NFL. But I mean, Indianapolis, that's not getting turned around this year. Lord knows Tennessee has no chance at all. I don't even know why Callahan even has a job. Jacksonville, we'll see.
All right, there you go. That's all we can get.
I mean, look, I'm still a Trevor Lawrence believer. I don't know about the whole Liam Cohen of it all, but like, I still believe that Trevor can be a good quarterback. So that will have me not completely count them out. But overall, like, this is a division that there's just a bunch of slop out there. So it's not like the Houston Texans have to do a ton in order to win the division, and the way things are currently structured as far as the playoff system in the NFL. So they can try and tinker, bring in different pieces, and then maybe eventually with CJ Stroud as clearly their franchise quarterback, they'll be to the point where, all right, they've got it all figured out, and Indianapolis will still be in the muck. Tennessee will still be in the muck, and maybe Jacksonville would have gotten it figured out at some point in time.
My man says it's all slop, so it's just one of them's got to be the best pig in that slop, and I hope it is absolutely the Jaguars. We're going to hear from James Yako from Locked On Bucks because he's going to talk about rules, right? But what we're really going to do is we're going to spin this around a little bit, and we're going to talk about the AFC South in particular. I want to get into how the Carolina Panthers have slowly kept their head down. And you know what? Dave Tepper aside, they've kind of done a pretty good job of, I think, surviving purgatory. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, James Yako is going to come up here from Locked On Bucks. And I think he's speaking from a perspective of Tampa being the top team, the division winner, because we're talking about rules changes and reseeding the playoffs. And he's going to talk about how ridiculous that is, and we're going to get into that. But I think it's a little presumptive of him to think that they're just going to win the division again next year, because I think little sneaky Carolina is little sneaky Carolina. But first, I want to get to that and the rules changes, and then we'll talk about the Panthers. Listen to Yako, makes so much sense.
But now in the opening round of the playoffs, they have to go on the road to Green Bay, even though the Packers finished second in the NFC North, but they were 12-5. How would it be fair the following season for the Bucs to have to face a tougher schedule since they apparently weren't as good as the Packers? You can't have it both ways. The Bucs are entering 2025 playing a first place schedule. They have to face every division winner from last year. The Packers get a third place schedule. That's a much easier path to the postseason. So if you're going to give wildcard teams home playoff games based off of their record, then you can't turn around and give them 3 games the following season that are easier than the team that they hosted has to face.
All right, so what Yako's talking about is they're trying to change the rules to get reseeding. It's something that Peter Bukowski brought up on the Squad Show, and we've even talked about it here. I think it's ridiculous because it's something you're going to end up chasing every year. As soon as you do it, somebody's going to debunk that whole thing, and you're going to send some wild card team somewhere, some division winner to a wild card, and they're going to bash their brains out, and people are going to want to take the rule back to the way it was before. But I will tell you this. I can't worry about, and they do use it as a metric. They do use your record and strength of schedule to talk about draft order and all of that stuff.
Sure.
But next year's schedule, those teams that were good last year, usually half the teams that make the playoffs don't make it the following year. So that doesn't mean that you're going to be better this year just because you're playing against teams the previous year that were better.
Yeah, and I mean the NFL does a great job at balancing out the schedule because like you obviously play the teams in your division twice. So that's 6 games. You're going to rotate by playing one division in your conference, one division in the other conference. They're going to play the other first team, second team, third team, 14 teams in your conference. And then I don't even know how they figure out the 17th game now, but it's pretty balanced overall. So I don't really know why you get caught up in, oh, you're going to be playing a third place or a first place schedule of the upcoming season, because not all these teams are the same. Like you look at the NFC East. Okay, Philadelphia, you get to play them again. That's not ideal. The Eagles have lost a decent amount this offseason, but there's never been a back-to-back champ in the NFC East. So in all likelihood, Philadelphia is not going to be the best team in that division. Now, if you're playing a third-place schedule, Dallas, they went 7-10. Dallas ain't going to be 7-10 this upcoming season as long as Dak Prescott stays healthy. I don't really love the idea of changing how they're doing the playoffs. I look at it right now, like every team in the NFL has a 25% chance to go to the playoffs by simply winning their division. And if they change it up, yes, it would still be just simple math, 25%, but it actually would be harder than that. Because you look at it, look at the AFC last year. Buffalo was 13-4, Baltimore was 12-5, Houston was 10-7, Kansas City were 15-2 as division winners. But you look also at Los Angeles, the Chargers, they were 11-6. So they would have had a home game and over, I guess, that Houston Texans team, the same Texans team that beat the brakes off of them in Houston. And that game being in Houston had nothing to do with the Texans winning that game. It had everything to do with the Chargers, being the Chargers. Move to have them in San Diego, move them to Los Angeles, doesn't matter. It's still going to be the same old Chargers. And that's what we saw. Like, I don't think owners are going to be interested in making it harder for them to host playoff games, which means money out of their pocket. Anything that's going to lower their revenue is something that they're not going to vote for. So while you might say, oh, this have a 25% chance, no, that's not the case. It absolutely is not, because 25% chance to win your division is not the same thing as 25% to go to the playoffs when you change the rules and you have to win seemingly at least 11 games. Well, right now, you go out there and win 9. Go out there and win 10. Hell, some years only win 8 games. No, I don't think owners will want to vote for that.
And the next time I hear someone say, well, we lost, but it wasn't fair because we had a better record and we had to go play some bad team. And I've never heard somebody say that as an excuse for them not winning a championship ever. So I don't know why they're worried about it right now.
Here, like we talk about this, the Vikings this past year, 14-3. They played the Rams, who were 10-7. You are 4 games better than this team. And they didn't even play in Los Angeles. They played in Arizona, and there were more Viking fans by the sound and looks of it, and they still lost. Like if you're the better team, win the game. Like I don't really buy. I mean, home field in the NFL, like, is of the playoffs that we have. I mean, I feel like hockey is the biggest toss-up as far as whether home ice matters at all. The NBA, I don't think it matters. Whoever the better team is going to win that. Baseball, I absolutely believe the home field advantage matters just because of simply having to throw a pitch over the plate. Like, that's one of the hardest things to do, especially in that environment. Like in the NFL, I do think it matters, but I still think it matters whether you can move the guys in front of you. Are you better up front than the other team? So I just think it's a loser mentality being like, oh, well, we didn't win our division. We didn't win the games we needed to. We need to change the rules. And then you see teams that would have benefited, then get their ass kicked this past. Like, this is not the year to make.
They had 3 teams in the playoffs, and not. I'm gonna sound real Florida right now, real Jacksonville, and not now one of them. Now one of them made it to the championship game in the NFC. All of them lost. So what are y'all talking about? Real quick, last thing. Am I right to say that from outside appearances, because we haven't heard a lot from Carolina, that they sneakily started playing a little bit better last year? Bryce Young really looked like a dude who you can build around, and they've quietly positioned themselves from the purge that they made when they got rid of all of those players to be a team that once they get another draft in here, they could probably start making some noise in the AFC South.
Yeah, potentially in the NFC South they could. Like they did play better Yeah, they played better down the stretch. Like they did have like a 4-game losing streak post-bye where they did play Kansas City close, Tampa close, Philadelphia close. And I'd argue they should have won both those Tampa and Eagles games before getting blown out by Dallas at home. But they bounced back, got a good win against the Cardinals, which closed out their chance to go to the playoffs. They came back in week 18 against Atlanta where Bryce Young was phenomenal and beat the Falcons in a game where Atlanta went into the day needing to win to go to the playoffs, even though by the time they got to overtime, they had already should have known that they weren't going to go to the playoffs either way. Yeah, I mean, they're getting better. The offensive line, that was a massive issue the year prior. They went out there, spent a bunch of money on Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt last offseason, and both of those guys are back. Actually, the entirety of the offensive line is coming back, which is something that did surprise me as far as like some of the backups returning to Carolina. So that side of the ball offensively, as far as the line and the quarterback, you can feel good about. The receivers, I still have a lot of questions. Ali Gett, I wasn't a huge fan of that pick. And then he's got the foot injury where he's going to miss apparently a significant time of this offseason. And that's a guy who needs to be out on the practice field. Like Thielen, Leggett, and Jalen Coker, who I'm sure no one who knows who the hell any of those guys are outside of Adam Thielen. That, like, there's the point. Like, that's not scaring anybody. Like, they need better talent there. Running back wise, I like Chuba Hubbard, like Rico Dowdle. But defensively, we'll see. Like, Derek Brown coming back, that helps, obviously. J.C. Horn staying healthy and getting paid, that's great. I like the Trevon Moore signing. I like some of the signings they made on the defensive line overall. They still don't have a pass rush. Clowney is not that guy. Has never been that guy. Never will be that guy, honestly. And then, like, Wonnum, fine player. Patrick Jones had a good year last year. I still look at Tampa as the team to beat in the NFC South. Like, Carolina's got to do more. Now, if you want to give credit to the owner, look at the soccer team. The MLS team that they have here in Charlotte is right now in second place in the Eastern Conference standings. I know it's very early in the MLS season, apparently, but that's a guy that's an owner in Tepper who had fired 2 coaches over there. And now he's got his 3rd coach who came from the English Premier League, and they're having success with the right kind of roster and getting the right kind of guys in. Now he's got his 3rd full-time head coach that he's hired here in Carolina, and it looks like the right infrastructure of Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis there in the front office. Maybe things are finally working out. Maybe it's 3rd time's a charm for David Tepper. Just kind of ridiculous. It takes him this long to figure things out.
No doubt about it, man. We want to give you a chance to cook. We always forget about those teams that are making a turnaround and see if they start out 3-0. Everybody's going to want to talk about them, but we did it here first on Locked On NFL. Make sure y'all tap in to Locked On NFL, man. Each and every day, Tyler Rowland is early in the morning, and then you got me, Tony Wiggins. Something else is going on, and that's Locked On NFL Draft. We appreciate you making us your first and second listen, your home team, plus Locked On NFL. But Damian Parsons and Keith Sanchez, man, they break down draft picks and draft choices better than anybody I know. So make sure you tap into Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get your podcast. Julian, man, it had been a few weeks. Glad, we got the dynamic duo back together on Monday, man, and we'll be back next Monday. We'll see you here on Locked On NFL.